Usually when you pack your suitcase for a trip, uh, that bag tells a very clear singular story.
Right. Yeah.
Like you've got your rugged, mud-proof gear and waterproof boots, maybe a compass, and that means you're heading out into the wilderness to rough it.
Exactly. Or, you've got your tailored evening wear, leather shoes, maybe a sleek jacket, which means you're going out on the town for fine dining and culture.
Yeah, it's almost always a binary choice.
Totally. You are either going completely off the grid to get dirty, or you are immersing yourself in high society to be pampered.
It's clean. It makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then you pack for a place like Highlands, North Carolina, and suddenly your suitcase is having a complete identity crisis.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you've got mud cake hiking boots sitting right next to a luxury spa robe, a theater ticket, and an itinerary for a Wine Spectator award-winning dinner.
It's just such a bizarre mix.
It really is. And today, we are extracting the ultimate blueprint for understanding this incredibly unique, wildly contradictory mountain town.
We really are.
We've pulled together a massive stack of sources to figure this place out for you. We're looking at historical hotel archives, Wikipedia climate data, local event calendars, highly specific trail maps, and curated town guides from places like Trailborn and romantic Asheville.
And honestly, the documents themselves reflect that split personality. I mean, you have topographical maps detailing grueling elevation changes sitting right next to menus offering, like, imported truffles and farm-to-table Southern cuisine.
Yeah, the mission today is to figure out the underlying mechanism of this place. Because here's the premise for you to keep in mind as we go through this.
Right.
How does a tiny town of roughly 1,000 permanent residents manage to boast world-class art, Oprah-awarded luxury, and a culinary scene that rivals major metropolitan cities, all while sitting in a rugged, high-altitude wilderness? Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to really grasp the economic and cultural engine of what Highlands is today, we have to start by looking at exactly why it exists in this specific spot.
Which is crazy in itself.
It is. Towns usually form around a natural resource, right? Like a logging river, a gold mine, or a natural deep water port.
Yeah, that's the standard blueprint.
But Highlands is entirely different. Its origins stem from a bizarre geographical anomaly and a genuinely strange founding method.
Strange is putting it mildly, honestly. I was reading through the historical archives, and the town was founded in 1875 by two men, Samuel Truman Kelsey and Clinton Carter Hutchinson.
Right, the founders.
And they didn't just, stumble upon a beautiful valley, pitch a tent, and say, hey, let's build a town here. They approached it like a math problem.
They literally took a map of the United States.
Yes. They drew a straight line connecting Chicago down to Savannah, Georgia. And then they drew another straight line connecting New York City to New Orleans.
And they just looked at where those two lines intersected on the paper.
Boom. X marks the spot. They confidently predicted that this exact mathematical intersection would eventually become a great commercial trading center.
A massive crossroads for the whole country.
Yeah, it's like they invented a 19th century predictive algorithm to calculate the absolute perfect city.
It's wild. But what's fascinating here is that their algorithm failed spectacularly in its original intent.
Oh, completely.
But they accidentally struck gold in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Because that intersection placed them at a very specific and, frankly, extreme elevation.
Yeah, Highlands sits at 4,118 feet.
Right.
Which makes it one of the highest non-resort incorporated towns anywhere east of the Mississippi River.
And because it's sitting up so high, it has this crazy microclimate.
Yeah, according to the meteorological data we pulled, it is technically classified as a subtropical highland climate.
Which is so rare for that region.
I mean, we are talking about the deep American South, but the average high temperature in July is a remarkably cool 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is the fundamental key to everything that followed. I mean, if you think about the American South in the late 19th and early 20th century.
Oh, before widespread air conditioning.
Exactly. Summer was brutal. It was sweltering, humid, and in many coastal areas, plagued by yellow fever and malaria.
And then you have this one spot, perched over 4,000 feet up, where it gets nearly 90 inches of rain annually.
It's essentially a lush, high-altitude rainforest.
So Kelsey and Hutchinson's dream of a bustling commercial freight hub was just doomed, right?
Yeah.
because the sheer rugged geography of the mountains made it impossible to build major rail lines or highways through there.
But that failure is exactly what saved the town. The climate itself became the natural resource.
Ah, I see.
It drew wealthy elites from across the South. We're talking plantation owners, industrialists, bankers, people who were desperate to escape the brutal summer heat.
Wow.
So that influx of serious wealth, seeking a literal breath of fresh air, permanently altered the town's trajectory. It completely bypassed the typical gritty mining or logging phases of most Appalachian towns.
They just went straight from wilderness to hospitality.
Pretty much.
These wealthy elites start arriving to escape the heat, and obviously they need places to stay. And the historical hotels that sprang up to catch this wealth have a history that is just wildly colorful.
Oh, definitely.
It's a journey from frontier chaos to literally hundreds of millions of dollars in curated luxury. I was looking at the Highlands Inn, which was built back in 1880.
Right. Originally called Highlands House, built by Joseph Halleck. And, while today it is this beautifully preserved piece of history owned by descendants of the town's early settlers, Bill and Sabrina Hawkins, its early days were incredibly volatile.
Volatile is the perfect word. The archives detail this event called the Moccasin War of 1885.
Oh, the Moccasin War, yeah.
The inn was actually used as a makeshift jail.
Yeah.
A U.S. revenuer had come to town and arrested 2 bootleggers who were running illegal moonshine.
Oh, wow.
And they locked them up right there in the inn.
And, the surrounding Appalachian communities were heavily reliant on the moonshine trade for income. So the arrest did not go over well with the bootleggers' friends and family.
Not at all. It sparked this massive outrage. An armed group of men from Moccasin Township over in Georgia actually marched across the state line and descended on Highlands.
Just unbelievable.
They had a dramatic Wild West-style standoff right there on Main Street, demanding the prisoners be released, with the Highlands Inn caught directly in the crossfire.
The tension was incredibly high. And the standoff finally broke when a local Highlander fatally shot a youth from the Moccasin contingent.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was a tragedy that finally forced the Georgians to withdraw, but it paints a vivid picture of raw frontier chaos. I mean, this was not a polished resort town. It was the wild frontier.
But then, you flip forward a few pages in the archives, and that very same inn is hosting a circus parade in October 1923.
With elephants.
Yes. They had literal elephants marching down that exact same main street to the awe of the well-heeled guests sitting on the porches.
Talk about a shift.
And just a few years later, in 1929, the Japanese-born photographer George Masa stays at the inn for 2 weeks. He takes these stunning, iconic black and white photographs of the surrounding landscape that were actually instrumental in establishing the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
You see an even more staggering evolution right next door at the Old Edwards Inn.
Oh, definitely.
It traces its roots back to 1878, operating initially as Central House. It was Highlands' first boarding house, managed by a couple known to everyone simply as Uncle Dave and Aunt Matt Norton.
It sounds so quaint. Just a modest, warm community hub.
It was. But as the wealth of the summer residents grew over the decades, the expectations for lodging grew right along with it.
Right.
Grover Diamond, Joe Edwards, and his wife Minnie expanded it in the 1930s. But the ultimate shift, the one that really defined the modern era of the town, happened in the early 2000s.
Yeah, the early 2000s transformation is just staggering to read about. Art and Angela Williams bought the property and poured $150 million into its transformation.
That's just an insane amount of money.
$150 million into a single property in a town of 1,000 people. They turned Aunt Matt and Uncle Dave's modest boarding house into a sprawling world-class resort.
It really is.
I mean, it now boasts a renowned spa, a private golf club, and it recently won a 2024 Oprah Daily Award for destinations to jumpstart your healing journey.
Wow.
I just have to laugh at the juxtaposition here. The exact same dirt that once absorbed the blood of a Wild West-style bootlegger standoff is now the site of farm-to-table dining at Madison's.
Yeah, where guests are getting lavish multi-$100 herbal spa treatments. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it perfectly captures the dual identity of Highlands that we mentioned earlier.
Right.
It is deeply rooted in this raw, sometimes violent, authentic Appalachian history, yet it is completely overlaid with premium, highly curated luxury.
It's a fascinating blend.
The wealthy guests who stayed at Old Edwards, they didn't just sit in the parlor. They wanted to experience the nature George Masa photographed, but they wanted to experience it on their terms.
Which brings us to the trails and the waterfalls. Because looking at these trail guides, the wilderness here is just as curated as the hotels.
Oh, absolutely.
It is carefully packaged for entirely different types of explorers depending on how much nature you actually want to endure.
Well, you have the highly accessible tier. This is nature you can experience without scuffing your shoes.
Like Bridal Veil Falls. It's the 45-foot waterfall right off Highway 64.
Right.
For decades, it was the only waterfall in North Carolina where you could actually drive your car directly behind the cascading water.
Which is so unique.
Yeah, a massive boulder slid off the side of the mountain in 2003, which altered the route and made driving the whole way through impossible, but it is still incredibly accessible.
And just a fraction of a mile up the road is Dry Falls.
Oh, yeah.
The sensory experience there is amazing. You can walk safely on a paved path right underneath a roaring 65-foot cascade, feeling the mist without ever really leaving civilization.
Then the curation shifts to cater specifically to families. The town utilizes its community trail network for something called the Kids Hike Highlands Trail Passport.
Which is so clever.
I saw this in the town guide, and it is a brilliant piece of gamification. On specific trails labeled in purple on the map, like the Rec Park Loop or the trail over at the Botanical Gardens, they've installed these purple painted mailboxes along the path.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, inside each mailbox is a riddle station. The kids have to solve the riddle, write the answer in their passport, and when they collect all four, they take it to the rec center for a special prize.
It literally turns the woods into an interactive scavenger hunt.
Exactly. But for all that accessibility, there's another end of the spectrum. The hidden wilderness.
Right.
Okay, yes, the hidden. I want to ask you about this. We've got a source here from Romantic Asheville talking about a place called Secret Falls, which is also technically known as Big Shoals Falls. It's described as this gorgeous 50-foot waterfall cascading into a deep, serene swimming hole about 6.5 miles out of town.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But honestly, I have to push back on this concept. If there is a highly detailed online guide, complete with a video walkthrough, a designated parking area, and blue trailblazes painted on the trees, how is it possibly a secret?
That is a very fair critique. On paper, it's public knowledge. Anyone with a smartphone can find the GPS coordinates.
Right.
But the reality of the geography provides the answer. The filter keeping it a secret isn't a lack of maps. It is the highly intimidating physical barrier required to get there.
Oh, so the drive itself is the bouncer.
The drive is a very strict bouncer. Let's trace the route. You leave the stoplight in downtown Highlands, and first, you have to navigate 3.7 miles of incredibly curvy, steep, paved mountain roads.
Okay, that doesn't sound too bad yet.
Then the real test begins. You turn onto a road ominously named Walking Stick Road.
Which is entirely unpaved.
Unpaved, rutted, and strictly one lane. Yet it somehow handles two-way traffic.
Oh, no.
You have to drive 2.5 miles down this blind curved dirt road, praying you don't encounter another car coming the other way.
I'm sweating just thinking about it.
Just imagine trying to navigate a $100,000 luxury SUV backward up a muddy incline because someone else is coming down.
Yikes.
Then you take a fork, cross a bridge, turn onto an even smaller, rougher Forest Service road, and drive until you find a tiny dirt pull-off marked by a single hidden stake in the ground that just says Secret Falls.
That sounds absolutely terrifying for anyone used to city driving.
It is a self-filtering wilderness. Only the truly dedicated or the truly adventurous are going to subject their vehicles to that drive.
Makes sense.
So when you finally hike down to that swimming hole, you often have the entire 50-foot waterfall all to yourself.
So you survive Walking Stick Road, you get your pristine private waterfall swim, and then you head back into town to wash the mud off.
Right.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The exact same people who are willing to brave a terrifying one-lane dirt road for a hidden swimming hole absolutely expect world-class culture the minute they get back to civilization.
They do.
And this tiny town delivers on that expectation in a way that defies all normal economic logic.
It is a statistical anomaly, an outsized oasis of culture for a permanent population of just over 1,000 people.
I mean, look at the arts sector alone. The town supports 4 different theaters.
4 theaters.
Yeah. The Highlands Playhouse has been operating since 1938. You've got the Instant Theater Company, the Highlands Community Players, and the massive Martin Lipscomb Performing Arts Center, which seats 3,500 people.
That's huge.
To put that in perspective, they are putting on a production of Agatha Christie's The Mousetrap in late March of 2026.
And for the visual arts, there is the Bascom. This isn't a small storefront gallery. It's a nonprofit visual arts center housed on a stunning 6-building, 6-acre campus right in the mountains.
And their spring 2026 lineup is intense and highly curated. In the Bunzel Gallery, they have an exhibit called Emergence.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah, it deeply explores the dynamic between faculty and student mentorship in Southeastern studio programs. And in the Thompson Gallery, their winter resident artist, Casey Schachner, has an exhibit called Ships We Keep, looking at complex themes of place and identity.
The town's social calendar perfectly reflects this incredible seamless mix of high society and grounded community. I mean, you can spend your Sunday morning attending a bluegrass brunch at the Highlander Mountain House,
Right.
or catch live blues on a Thursday at the Ruffed Grouse.
But right alongside that, you have everyday community events. They have Easter egg hunts at the rec park, and the Literacy Center runs English as a second language and citizenship classes every single week.
Which is so important.
It really proves this is a real functioning town with year-round residents, not just a gated artificial resort that shuts down when the wealthy leave.
But the presence of those wealthy seasonal residents is what subsidizes the infrastructure for everyone else. Which brings us to the culinary scene.
Yes, again, a town of 1,000 permanent residents supports six Wine Spectator award-winning restaurants.
It's unbelievable.
That is a concentration of culinary excellence you usually only find in neighborhoods of Manhattan or Chicago. You've got these incredibly upscale spots. Ristorante Paletti has an extensive, globally sourced wine cellar and house-made pastas.
Oh, yum.
There's the newly opened Trailborn Supper Club, offering inventive big city cocktails in a highly stylish setting. And Madison's at the Old Edwards Inn is famous for its refined, farm-to-table Southern cuisine, executing at a Michelin star level.
But walk 50 feet down the street and you find highly casual, deeply beloved local spots.
Exactly. You've got the dog-friendly patios at the Ugly Dog Pub where hikers can grab a local craft beer in their dirty boots.
Yeah, perfect after a hike.
Or Mountain Fresh Grocery, which is this amazing hybrid market and cafe where you can get a hearty, greasy spoon breakfast, or pack a curated gourmet picnic with artisanal cheeses to take with you to Cliffside Lake.
This really raises an important question, though. How did this specific expectation of high-end socialization take root in such an isolated place?
That's a great question.
Why didn't it just stay a rustic cabin town? Well, if we look back to the 1930s, the town's cultural identity was essentially locked into place. That is when the legendary golfer Bobby Jones of Atlanta, along with his wealthy peers, helped found the Highlands Country Club.
Ah, so that set the precedent.
It established the baseline economic mechanism. That single move cemented a culture that demands both top-tier outdoor recreation and premium, high-end socialization.
Wow, okay.
It created an economic anomaly where a small influx of ultra-wealthy seasonal second homeowners pour massive amounts of capital into the local economy.
Right, which filters down.
Exactly. They subsidize the year-round infrastructure, allowing the 1,000 permanent residents to enjoy a tax base and a level of amenities, theaters, art campuses, fine dining that a town 50 times its size would struggle to support.
So what does this all mean? Why does this matter to you listening to this deep dive right now? Well, if you are looking for an experience or a trip that seamlessly blends intense raw nature with absolute uncompromising high-end comfort, Highlands is the ultimate case study in how to do both.
Truly the ultimate case study.
You don't have to choose between the mud and the spa robe. You can hike a grueling, terrifyingly isolated trail in the morning and be back in time for a world-class wine tasting and a theatrical performance in the evening. It is a paradox, but it is a paradox that works flawlessly.
It does work beautifully, but I'd like to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay.
We've talked about how the sheer, rugged geography and intimidating dirt roads act as a bouncer, keeping the wilderness pristine and the town secluded.
Right.
Think back to the town's founders, Kelsey and Hutchinson, drawing their lines from Chicago to Savannah. They predicted a great commercial trading hub. Looking at the highly curated, secluded, boutique luxury town of 1,000 people today, did they actually fail?
Oh, interesting.
Or did the sheer geography of the mountains overrule their capitalist ambitions, forcing the town to become something far more rare and beautiful than a bustling trade center could ever be?
Oh, wow. That is a fascinating point. When the geographical paywall drops or changes, the whole ecosystem changes. Your suitcase might be thoroughly confused by this town, but the town itself might be facing an even bigger identity crisis in the coming decades. Thanks for exploring the map with us today.